So the healing by default is by fibrosis and ankylosis. Most often it is fibrous ankylosis. How do those patients, that's all the pathology what you can see in tuberculosis. How do these patients present to you? These patients present to you with most of the systemic symptoms, as I told you: lassitude, fatigue, poor appetite, weight loss, low grade fever, night sweats and night cries. And when you come to these joints, initially when there is a synovitis, there will be limitation of the range of motion in extremities. But once there is arthritis set in, tuberculous joint, patient will have lot of muscle spasm in and around, patient will not be in a position to move. Same like septic arthritis, but at a lower grade when compared to that, patient will have restriction of the range of motion, right? When it is a septic tuberculous arthritis, that is in the joint involved because of tuberculosis pathology, you will have a restriction of motion, spasm of the muscles which are crossing the joint or which are acting on the joint, and then the muscle wasting will be there. Then there, if you take an X-ray, you can see the joint is distended, eroded, decalcified, juxta-articular osteopenia. These are all the classical features of tuberculosis. You should never forget. Now, at times, all the classical features of tuberculosis may not be present. Most often, they say, even if you do all the possible investigations, 30% of tuberculosis patients will still be missed. That is the amount of what I should say, misdiagnosis that you can go about with tuberculosis. You do all the possible investigations, 30% of the patient you still miss. So most often there will be atypical presentations. How do you diagnose? You should have a very high index of suspicion. Whenever you see a slowly onset disease and going on for so long a time, always suspect one, tuberculosis, and most often there will be a fallacious history of trauma. Sometimes even there may not be any constitutional symptoms also. What are all those things that I have explained? Sometimes they may not be there even. I told you only 20% of the cases they have seen loss of appetite and weight loss. So you should have always, in India, right, tuberculosis. You are never wrong if you diagnose tuberculosis and malaria for most of the conditions. If you don't diagnose, you will be wrong. Okay, always keep in mind. That's why you should also know the atypical presentations too. Right? So when we come to the specific parts, I will tell you, let you know what are all the atypical presentations with which these patients can come to you. How do you investigate? First thing, when it comes to orthopedic part of it, radiology. You have a close connection between radiology and orthopedics most often because you are dealing with bones. So what do you see in the X-ray? I told you, if it is an osteomyelitis, you see a focus of infection, sequestration, but you can't see that much of periosteal reaction as you see in acute hematogenous osteomyelitis. The periosteal reaction in tuberculosis is very less, but destruction will be more, right, or even same. Now when it comes to the joint, what happens is there will be intense juxta-articular osteopenia with erosions starting from the corners of the joint with decrease in the joint space. When it is going into when it is going into an advanced arthritis stage. But in the early stages, because of the collection of pus and synovitis, there may be tense joint which is swollen and the joint space might be looking like increased joint space. So joint is so big, a swollen joint may be seen in the initial stages. These are all the things what you can see in a X-ray. Tuberculous osteomyelitis, I told you, typically there will be minimum bone reactive bone formation, and in arthritis initially you see a distended joint, at a later date you will see decreased joint space. So other investigations, I will just go fast because you might have already learned all these things in microbiology, general medicine. Tuberculosis is a, what I should say, SPM, every place you get it. So usually you see lymphocytic leukocytosis when compared to septic arthritis. There it is neutrophilic leukocytosis. ESR is raised, sometimes it can go 80, 100 more. To the very severely raised ESR usually seen two conditions most often. One is septic, one is this, even septic arthritis also it can go to that extent. Most commonly you see this raised ESR and persistently raised ESR in tuberculosis in and around 80, 100, even 150, and even in rheumatoid arthritis. These two conditions most often, these are the cases where they come to the OPDs most often, right? And Monto, literally speaking, Monto gives you nothing. Frankly speaking, it just gives you an impression that you can mount an immunological response to tuberculosis, and you have already been infected with tuberculosis, and you already have a immunity fighting against it. But if the reaction is very badly big, more than 15 mm, then that shows you, that gives you some insight that okay, this fellow may be strongly having this infection. Okay, sometimes if the Monto reaction is negative, still tuberculosis can be present. If that patient is having a viral infection, or the patient is recently or the patient is having an immunocompromise, or patient is having a disseminated tuberculosis, still MON2 can be negative. So it goes that way, this way. So most often we don't try to rely on MON2, right? Serum ELISA for antigen 6, they'd say IgG and IgMs have come, but even you do still miss out 30% of the cases. Synovial fluid aspiration, it gives a very good insight. You aspirate the synovial fluid and then send it for what are all the tests, microbiological examinations for gram stain, culture sensitivity, as well as AFB stain, acid fast bacilli. If you can see acid fast bacilli, there is nothing like that, seen, hence there, right? And you can take this and inoculate in guinea pig, see if the pig is harboring these bacteria and all these classical features of granulomatous reactions are there in the guinea pig. You cut it and see if at all they are there. Usually takes 1 month to 3 months. So it's a very prolonged process, right? And you have to catch hold of a guinea pig also. So nowadays we are not doing all those things. We usually do synovial fluid, take it and send it for AFB, and you send it for PCR, more specifically PCR. Even if you do PCR, again I told you, sometimes false positives also may be there, right? But if you can do a specific PCR for this detection of the antigens by of Mycobacterium tuberculosis, most often you can come to a conclusion and diagnosis. But even if everything is negative, if you have a strong suspicion, always it is better for you to start an empirical ATT. If the patient is responding to empirical ATT within 3 weeks, that means it is tuberculosis. Got it? So you should always have a strong high index of suspicion, and you should be in a position to see. This is what the tuberculin reaction is all about. You all know better than me even. When it comes to it, you might have read it in more than one subject, right from anatomy. When it comes to synovial fluid, usually the synovial fluid leukocytosis, I told you more than 50,000 in septic arthritis. Here it can be anywhere from 10,000 to 1 lakh. Usually the average what they have noted is more than 20,000, and polymorphs are more than 60%. There it is more than 75 to 80% in septic arthritis. Classically the glucose is decreased because glucose is being eaten away by the bacteria and protein is elevated, right? Because a lot of pus is there in the joint and all the immunological response are coming, so whole of the protein will go up. If you do an electrophoresis for this, the protein bands will be coming more in this synovial fluid. And I told you, when you take a histopathological section, the unit what denotes that it is tuberculosis is tubercle with central caseous necrosis, right? And peripheral Langerhans cells and histiocytes. Guinea pig inoculation I told you nowadays we are not doing, and isotype scintigraphy, it's not that specific to tuberculosis, it just says something wrong is there with the joint. Serological test I told you, ELISA for antibody to mycobacterial antigen 6, it has a sensitivity to up to an extent of 94%, right, specifically. This is useful in differentiating from other conditions which similarly look like, more specifically brucella also looks like tuberculosis when it comes to spine. It's very difficult to diagnose, so you have to just more specifically look into the antigens of Mycobacterium tuberculosis specifically. And I told you when it comes down to treatment part, why it is called specific is, for non-specific infections you have 100 antibiotics, 1000 antibiotics I should say. Staph aureus you give 1 to 100, whatever is described in your pharmacology, either Kadzang or some other thing, one thing or the other works. But when it comes to specific, you have to give specific antibiotics. What are the specific antibiotics for tuberculosis? It is anti-tubercular treatment. You have first line drugs, you have second line drugs. Okay. Usually I told you the treatment will be for 1 to 1.5 years. So always remember 1.5 years is the dictum. Okay. Then if you know the best part of it, 1 year can be an exception. Okay. What is this no DOTS? For tuberculosis of bone and joint, DOTS treatment does not work. Let anybody come and contradict me. For me, DOTS will not work. What does they do in DOTS? They give antibiotics every 3 days, right? That doesn't work. What I mean to say DOTS does not work is give anti-tuberculosis treatment every day, not every 3rd day. Am I clear here? That's how DOTS doesn't work. I prefer giving, or even my professors always said, it has been described, give anti-tuberculosis treatments every day, right? And how to give it? This is from Tully textbook of orthopedics, more specifically dealing with tuberculosis. Treatment is 6 plus 8 plus what? 4 is equal to 4 not, it is 4. 6 plus 8 plus 4 is equal to what? 18. 18 correct? Is it true? So 14 plus 4 is 18. The first 6 months is called as intensive phase, next 8 months is called as continuation phase, next 4 months is called as prophylactic phase. Write down, because this is not there given in your textbooks. Usually in your textbooks they said give it as if you are treating the pulmonary or another lymph node tuberculosis. But for orthopedics we follow this, and this works. He has described it as first intensive phase, first 6 months, this is not 4 months, wrongly typed. The first 6 months you need to give 3 drugs. H is isoniazid, R is rifampicin, O is ufloxacin, right? H is isoniazid 5 mg, rifampicin 10 mg, ufloxacin 10 mg per kg, right? Second 4 months, second 8 months again is divided into first 4 months and second 4 months. You have to give in the first 4 months H and Z. Z is pyrazinamide 25 milligram per kg, and next 4 months H plus R, isoniazid with rifampicin. Then the prophylactic phase comes next. Then last 4 months you have to give isoniazid and ethambutol. Okay, that's what I told you. First line of drugs and second line of drugs you know better than me. And when it comes, these are all the side effects you should always know. Whenever you are starting a patient on ATT, they say take a liver function test first. Most often they used to say in the past. Nowadays most of the doctors they don't do it, but always do it, because most of the drugs are hepatotoxic. The most important drugs what we use in tuberculosis treatment is isoniazid and rifampicin. Both of them are hepatotoxic. Specifically when it comes to streptomycin, remember vestibular damage and nephrotoxicity. Pyrazinamide again hepatotoxicity, and ethambutol optic neuritis. That's why you don't give it in children. They will not be in a position to tell you that they are not able to see the colors. Okay, so in children ethambutol is contraindicated. The first part, all tuberculosis patients you have to give those drugs, no exception. All those patients you have to treat by medical management. Even if you don't want surgery also you have to give, even if you want surgery also you have to give that medical management. The next important point is rest to the affected part by adequate splintage. If it is a hip joint, you have to put a hip spica or splint it in such a way, or give traction and make the patient lie down in the bed till such a time that there is a healing of the process. Rest is the most important thing for tuberculosis lesions to heal. Rest is most important, never forget. Second is, it is a constitutional disorder. I told you, hence build up the immunity of the patient. That makes a lot of difference in your treatment. The most important thing, once you have dealt with the patient part, come to the affected portion. Properly splint, position the joint. Why? Because if the pathology is not under your control and if it is eating away the joint or a bone, if you don't keep the joint in a functional position, if it gets ankylosed or fibrous ankylosis at that position, if it is in a very bad position, it will be a useless limb. Okay, so even if it gets ankylosed, you should put it in such a position that it is useful. So those optimal positions have been described for every joint. Okay, should put the joint, if it is hip joint, you have to put it in neutral. So it should not, you should not be put it in adduction or abduction. You should put it in neutral position, slight 10 to 30 degrees of flexion, slight amount of 5 to 10 degrees of external rotation. This is a neutral position for hip joint. Because hip joint is the most common joint that is affected, that's why I told you that. If it is to a knee joint, you should just put it in 5 to 10 degrees of flexion. That is an optimal position. Even if it gets ankylosed in that position, it will be still useful. Okay.